Alright guys, today we are checking out Infinity shallow mount sub, and if you guys haven't seen, this is one of the subs I'm doing in a 10-inch shallow sub shootout. So go ahead and subscribe, keep an eye out for my other videos. I'm going to test 4 shallow mounts and do a shootout at the end. But today we're checking out the Infinity 1000S 10-inch shallow mount subwoofer. So this specs say requires 1.5 for vented and about 0.7 cubic foot sealed. And the mounting depth on this is 3¼ inches. And now this sub has a selectable 2 or 4 ohm impedance, so there's no voice coils to have to jump. So you can either run this at 2 or 4 with the flip of a switch. It does have a really soft, feels like real rubber surround, hard dust cap, and you do have foam on this side. Let's take a look at the back. Okay, and here is the back of the sub, and this sub is rated at 200 RMS, and it says 800 peak. Now this has like a uni basket. The basket is all one piece, and it encapsulates the whole magnet and subwoofer. And this doesn't have a rubber gasket around the mounting flange, so you will need to add foam unless you just want to rely on the carpeted box to seal it. And again, there's your dual impedance switch from 2 ohm to 4 ohm. Now we're going to be testing these out in a sealed 0.7 cubic foot box, as most people are going to be running these in sealed. And we're going to run it on a 650 watt amp that puts out true 650 watts. So we're going to see how it sounds as well as see how much power it takes. But it's really a cool looking sub. It is pretty heavy. I'll put the weight up on the screen now, as well as the TS parameters that we pulled pre-break-in. So you can kind of see in there the single spider and the magnet. And this does have a 2-inch voice coil. So let's go ahead and get it hooked up and see how it sounds. But it's a really cool looking sub, so let's get started. Okay, so we got this Infinity shallow mount 10 in the box, and we're going to be checking on a meter, seeing what active power it's going to be getting live. And keep in mind, even though the amp is a 650 RMS amp, because of impedance rise, that's when you put a subwoofer in a box, the impedance is always higher than just the sub out of the box. So even though this is 2 ohms, we're probably going to see about 3 or 4 ohms. So the amp should still put out about 400 watts, 300 watts. And since this is 200 watts rated, it should be a perfect test. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, so that was the Infinity Shallow Mount 10. I will say this sub is super efficient. You didn't really gain anything if you saw in the meter going above 200 watts. It really was pumping at 200 watts. It kind of started breaking up once you got over 250 watts, so it's definitely at the 200 RMS rating I think is accurate. So keep in mind though, with box rise, even though this was at 2 ohms, you saw it was about 3 ohms to 5 ohms real world. So you can overpower it to combat that. So this is 200. You can throw a 400 watt amp on here, 350 watt amp, and be just fine if you want to get max out of it. Otherwise, just a couple 100 watt amp will do fine on this sub. It sounded very good, which, I'm a big Harman and Infinity and JBL fan for a lot of reasons, but their stuff just sounds good. It hit the lows really well, like the under 30 hertz tones, which a lot of shallow mounts struggle with. This really put the lows out strong. And it was nice, smooth bass. It just sounded very good. So I did notice with the selectable switch, the impedance was a little bit higher, even with box rise, than some of the other subs I've had. But excellent sub. Great sound. Hit the lows. Very efficient. I mean, you could run this off a 100 watt amp, 200 watt amp, and it would be fine. So stay tuned for the next videos. I'm doing 3 more shallow mounts, and I'm going to do a shootout at the end and compare all 4. If you like this video, guys, please like and subscribe. It really helps me out. And I'll catch you on the next one.